Why You Need to Hire a Ghostwriter for Your Business with Diane Faulkner, episode 172. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel. We had a massive change in the Law Firm Growth Summit coming up for February 9th. So the folks over at NODA have coughed up some extra dough. So basically, they have elevated their sponsorship, and the event is now being brought to you by NODA. So definitely, if you haven't checked them out, if you have a trust account and you want to manage that trust account without losing your legal license, then you definitely want to check out NODA, and you can do that at trustnoda.com. They didn't pay for that spot that I just gave them some extra juice. They have a special link. I think trustnoda.com/profit with law, or maybe /growth summit. I forget. Anyway, check them out. Book a call with them. If you have a trust account, you definitely want to have a conversation with them because they have created an unbelievable tool. And I'm an accountant, so I'm telling you, they've gone, three-way reconciliation is so simplified. You can log into your bank and literally see every one of your clients' real-time balance in the trust account right there in your bank dashboard. It's pretty amazing. Anyway, so they backstopped our event and basically allowed us to open up 2,000 seats with a free limited pass. So if you've been sitting on the fence wondering, hey, should I get into the summit? Should I go? And you've been concerned about the cost, then you have an opportunity to get in for absolutely free. So go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com and register right now before we run out of those passes. They are going like wildfire. Actually, we first made this available on Friday afternoon, and by the end of the weekend, we had over 250 people reserve their tickets. So you want to grab it while it's available. Go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. And all the information about the event is there on that page. Also, unless you're hiding under a rock, you've probably been getting served our ads. You've probably been seeing our posts on Facebook and LinkedIn. So definitely check it out. Hopefully it's for you. I'd love to see you there and get a chance to interact with you. I'd love to meet my listeners. So yes, it's a virtual event, and lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. I have a treat for you today. Our guest today is going to be something different. We've actually had, I'm trying to think if we had one or two, for sure one ghostwriter in the past, or maybe not a ghostwriter, but a blog post writer. So I definitely want to dive into what might be the difference between those two. But I'm super, super excited to have Diane on the show. Let me share an exciting tool that I recently came across that is a game changer for law firms that bill hourly or by the project, otherwise known as flat fee billing. The 2020 Legal Trends Report published by Clio rates how important various items are in a client choosing your firm. You may be surprised to know that the third most important decision factor for someone choosing a lawyer is the ability to pay with a payment plan. The challenge that law firm owners face is the risk of a client not making good on that payment plan. Most attorneys don't offer payment plans because of that. The problem is now solved with LawFunder. LawFunder allows you to easily add a payment option to all your client invoices and retainer replenishment requests that does not require credit checks, applications, or any other complex process. The client's able to use their existing credit cards, allowing them to earn points and miles, access credit card specials on interest rates, and any other tools they use to manage their cash. When I saw this tool, I was blown away. Most importantly, it removes all the risk from the law firm and makes an easy and painless process to the payment process. So if you want to check off the box on one of the top factors in new client decisions, if you want to decrease your accounts receivable and get paid immediately, LawFunder is the solution. Go to lawfunder.com. That's lawfundar.com/profit with law to learn more. Now, let me introduce you to Diane Faulkner, our guest today. Diane is a ghostwriter, content marketing strategist, and award-winning editor. She writes content for companies like Forbes, LegalZoom, ADP, and Commodity Network, as well as for trade journals such as the Conference Board Review, the Federal Credit Union, HR Executive Magazine, and many others. And she has ghostwritten for business books. She has been in business for 21 years and is based in Jacksonville, Florida. Diane, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. And I'm so excited to have you here because writing is something that we know we need to be doing, but a lot of people just don't necessarily have the skill set or the patience to sit there. I mean, I know when I go to write, I'm staring at a blank screen, and I mean, I could stare at the same blank screen for 2 hours and not come up with anything. But when I'm behind the microphone and I talk, I have no problem with coming up with content, with having these conversations. So I definitely need a ghostwriter in my life. Now, before we jump into the content, I would love to have with you this discussion with you. Before that, people want to know, who is this lady Diane? Who are we listening to for the next 45 minutes? So can you give us the backstory of how you became a ghostwriter? And I know that you're a in your words, a labor law geek. So I'd like to know a little bit about that. Like, how did you become a geek in labor law as well? But just give us the broad strokes of who you are.
Okay. Well, I was a vice president of human resources for a major credit union, railroad credit union, for many years. And this is pre-internet. And then when the internet came, we had an executive chat room that my president was participating in, and he had gotten a question posed to him from a editor of our trade journal or one of our trade journal magazines, and he came in and said, "I want you to answer this for me." So I said, "Okay, no problem." And the way that the editor had posed the question, I knew the answer that she wanted, but I also knew that there were many things that needed to go on before we could get to the answer that she wanted. So I emailed her this long email, and she said, "This is great. Would you mind writing a feature for us?" And that's how I started writing. And I wrote constantly for that particular trade journal. And then when it came time my dad had some health issues, and I had to actually leave work. This is right when FMLA first came out, and there was no key man provision for someone in my position. So I didn't get the choice of staying on. I had to leave to take care of my dad. And I just continued writing for other trade journals, credit union trade journals. And when I wanted to branch out, I reached out to our local business journal, and I started being a stringer for them. And I met a couple who owned an international business, and they asked me when I was interviewing them to do a profile on them, they asked me if I could help them if I would ghostwrite their book. They've been having difficulty doing that. And I said, "Of course, I can do that for you." And having never ghostwritten a book before, I can do that. And that's how I got into ghostwriting. And that's how ghostwriters get into ghostwriting. They back into it. You don't find people who start out wanting to be a ghostwriter, because to be a ghostwriter, you really need to have a lot of clips behind you. You have to have been published for quite a while. You have to know what the publishing process is. It helps if you're also an editor, so that you can put together a storyline. And I just happened to have all of that at that time, and that's how I became a ghostwriter. And as for being a labor law geek, my parents worked for General Motors back in the day, and they were big in the union, and our dinner conversation was labor law. So all my life, I've just heard different aspects of labor law. So I've heard the the union side aspect of labor law, and then when I got into human resources, I got into the employer side of labor law, and I just loved it. I in college I was a psychology major. I was a clinical psychology major, and then I also was a industrial and organizational psychology major. So I could be a shrink to credit union or to companies, and took a lot of labor law classes there. And I just I have my favorite laws, and I like writing on them, and I like speaking on them. And that's really how I came to be where I am today, just writing and ghostwriting and loving every minute of it.
Your story gave me chills along the way, and I think it's just because we got to, in the brief little description that you gave us, we got to take this little journey with you into how you fell into your calling, right? And you just kind of like stepped into it accidentally, and then found something that you love doing and that you're good at. And I think that people resonate with stories like that because it warms our hearts. We know that somebody is rising to their potential. So really love that you shared that with us, and thank you for being so open. I'd like to go straight into this conversation around ghostwriting. So my assumption is that a ghostwriter is somebody who does the writing but doesn't put their name on it. Is that accurate? Is it somebody else gets to claim the credit for your writing?
Yes, someone else gets to claim the credit for the writing, but there is also you can also be a ghostwriter and have your name on the cover. That's just a newer aspect of ghostwriting. Your author is basically admitting, hey, this is my book, but I didn't write any of it. I basically spilled my guts to somebody else, and they put the story together for me, and here's my book. You see that quite often, where you'll see the name of someone or the name of the author, and then it'll say with so and so, and that so and so is the ghostwriter.
Now, I don't want to focus on books, but you really intrigued me with this idea of having a ghostwriter write your book for you. How expensive or time consuming is the book writing process for ghostwriting a book? I imagine that that's not the primary thing you do. And and articles are they're much quicker wins and easier sells probably. But if somebody wanted to write a book, what might they be looking at if they wanted to have somebody like you do that for them?
Well, they're looking at not giving up, but they're looking at sharing about a year of their life with me. It can take, for average business book, it can take 7 to 9 months for me, 7 to 9 months to actually put the manuscript together. And there's a lot of interviewing in the beginning, and then there's just me following up every week, letting my author know where I am in the process. And it's not cheap. It's expensive. It's definitely an investment, and it can run anywhere from $30,000 on up. For me, it's between $30,000 and $60,000 is what I've charged for business books. But I have colleagues who have charged $500,000 for a book. It just depends on who you're writing it for, what their story is, how complex it's going to be. The more outside interviews that I would have to do, the more expensive it gets. The more research I have to do, the more expensive it gets. So if you know what your story is and basically have everything at your fingertips, then that's the ideal for you and me.
Got it. Okay, so let's move away from books and let's talk about the people who are listening to this podcast. Okay, they're law firm owners. They would have different reasons to write. Like they would need to write a blog post if they wanted to write a blog that would attract people from an SEO perspective, or from an informational perspective. Hey, I'm checking this law firm out, and I want to know if they know what they're talking about. I want to know if they're personable, or whether, stuff like that. And they'll go and check out the blog and read some articles to see, hey, am I able to relate to this person, and the stuff that they write and they come up with. Or they might want to put out a book, similar reasons. Maybe they are they know that a book is the ultimate business card. That they can, once they say, hey, I'm the author of this and this book, and it's on a topic that's related to the service they offer, they can now turn around and hold that as a reason for charging more, for why you should work with me as opposed to working with somebody else. So there's a lot of different compelling reasons as to why writing might be in the cards. What should somebody do to start? How do they evaluate whether writing is for them, whether they should investigate getting a ghostwriter? What is there some sort of criteria they should use to go through that process?
Well, generally the people who are coming to me for me to ghostwrite their blog posts, or ghostwrite any kind of content on their website, they're just really busy professionals. They know that they need to do this aspect of their marketing, but they just do not have the time to do it. So they'll reach out to a writer to see if they would ghostwrite their work. For me, preferably they're reaching out to a ghostwriter, not just a regular writer. But what that person would want to do is make sure that the ghostwriter is vetting them. Well, they need to vet the ghostwriter as much as the ghostwriter needs to vet them, because there's got to be a personality sync there. I have turned down people because I just didn't think that there would be, it would be a good fit. Our personalities wouldn't fit. And they also have to be open to some general conversation, because the ghostwriter is going to need to pick up on different personality traits that we can put into the writing. So we're giving the reader an accurate representation of who you are, not just what you know, but who you are. And
Right.
That's so that when you do meet that prospective client, they're not going to say, gosh, you're nothing like what I thought you were like when I was reading your blog post. You sounded so different.
Right.
That's not what you want. The biggest compliment any of my authors can give me is that someone read what I wrote and they said it sounds just like you.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And I imagine that it's an interesting process to navigate, to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and to sound like them, as you're putting, pen to paper and putting this out there. You mentioned something that I had already said I wanted to cover at the beginning in the intro. You said, hopefully they're a ghostwriter and not a regular writer. Can you explain the difference between the two, to get that out of the way? Because I think there's confusion around that.
okay. Well, a regular writer is someone who has their own voice, and they don't really, I don't want to say they don't listen, but they're not listening in a way that, listening to the author in a way that they would be able to pick up on their personality tics and put that into the writing. You can tell, like a George Will, if you read something of his and you didn't see the name, you'd know it was George Will just by the way it sounds and the way it's written. That's a regular writer. They have their own voice, and they basically don't write outside of their own voice, and don't necessarily want to write outside of their own voice.
Do they attach their own name to it? In other words, is it you're basically having a writer write a post for you and they are the author of that article and it's just being hosted on your site? Or will they still put your name behind it and it's just not written in a way that it sounds like you?
No, if it's ghost written, if a blog post is ghost written, then it's that author. I call my client the author. I'm the ghostwriter, they're the author. It would have that author's name on it, because I've ghostwritten it for them. So the reader wouldn't know that I wrote it.
Right. So my question is are regular writers acting as if they are ghostwriters and they just don't have that skill set? Or are they coming to you and saying, hey, I'm not a ghostwriter. I can write articles for you. It's going to have my name on it. You're not going to be the author. Or are they saying, yeah, I can write for you and you can be the author and I'll be the ghostwriter, but they're not true ghostwriters because they're not putting your word or your style into the post.
Right. That's the latter is the correct. They're writing in their own style. They're not putting the author's style into that writing. And they're just
So when somebody's, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
You can finish that thought.
No, I said that they're just slapping the name of the author on, their writing and just passing it off as ghostwriting. That's not what you want.
Right. So when somebody's evaluating a ghostwriter, how do they tell the difference? How do you know up front whether this ghostwriter is going to do the job of trying to impersonate your voice?
It's really all in how that ghostwriter is vetting them. I'll ask more personality based questions. I'll ask for samples of the person's writing. I'll ask for just, will you have time just to chat with me over some subject? A regular writer is not going to want to do that because they're into just getting the article written. Let me do some research. Let me put something together for you, and you can slap your name on it. A ghostwriter is not going to do that. A ghostwriter is going to go through a vetting process. A regular writer won't go through a vetting process.
Got it. Now, one of the things that I've heard some of my clients say, and I've taught in conversation with a number of attorneys, is a concern for them is I don't want to have somebody else write on my site because I am putting my name behind it, and therefore I'm concerned about inaccurate information or the wrong thing being said, and my name's attached to it. Is that something that you find to be an issue? Is what are the things that you do in the writing process to get what you're writing approved so that the author knows I'm comfortable putting this out there because I know it's not going to have anything that I'm not okay with?
Well, the author is going to have to sign off on whatever it is that I give to them. I'll do the research. I'll make sure that everything is cited correctly. But then then I would pass the final product to the author. The author would need to read it over, do their due diligence, read it over, and say yay or nay.
Got it. Yeah, and as I was asking the question, I was kind of thinking like this is kind of it's kind of a silly thing, and I think it's really a cop out that people have because nobody is posting to your website without checking with you, right? So you should be reviewing it, and if you don't have the time to review it, then we got other problems, right? At the very least, you should be able to review a blog post before it goes on your site.
Yeah.
Or have a staff member review it. Right.
Yeah, have someone review it. Absolutely, they have to have someone review it because I'm not going to be comfortable giving up the copyright until I know that it's been signed off on by the author. Because as I'm writing it, even though I'm ghostwriting it, I still own the copyright, and I will not give up the copyright until it's been approved by the author.
Mm-hmm. Which leads to another question, which I haven't even thought about, and that's the rights of the material that you're writing. You're saying you're giving over the copyright. So essentially, once you've completed it and they sign off on it, you have no claims to that text, right? You're basically signing over your rights to it to the author. Is that correct?
That's correct. In my contract, I spell it out just exactly how it's going to go. Once they sign off on it and I get the final payment, then I release the copyright. Yeah,
you're in an interesting, unique position to be able to make sure you get paid, right? or they could choose not to use it, right? I hope that's not the case, and everybody pays you. When it comes to a book, is there ever a a sharing of royalties with you, or is that something that you seek in your process, or
Yeah.
is it just, hey, I want to get paid for my writing, and what you do with it, you go go kill it, but I have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, it's very rare for a ghostwriter to request royalties. It's such a slow process, for royalties to come in. You have to the author has to meet a certain level of sales before royalties actually come in. They have to make back whatever the upfront money is that they got from the publisher. And so that's, my mortgage payment comes every single month. So I need to be paid. I get paid, upfront and as well as monthly throughout. I let my clients, have a steady monthly payment so that it's easier for them to budget. And then that final payment, I have them withhold the final payment until they sign off on the manuscript. And then once they sign off on it, they pay me, and I release I give the notice to release the copyright.
Got it. Now, how involved are you in any of the other ancillary processes around this? So, for example, with writing a book for somebody, do they come already with a deal with a publisher and then they're coming to you to write the book? Or are they coming to you and saying, hey, I got this book and I'm going to have to go find a publisher. I want you to write it. And then are you involved in that process? I'm going to tack on another part to this question because I think it all goes together. And when you're writing a blog post, for example, let's say that they say, hey, I want this to rank for SEO. Are you doing any of the work to make sure that your writing is done in conjunction with that goal, so that the terminology for the specific things you want it to rank for is in the text of the article? How involved are you getting in the other goals of the writing as opposed to just the writing process?
Okay, well, I'll take the first part of the question. With the publishing process, I'm as involved as our contract says that I'm involved. Now, people have come to me before they've already secured an agent with an idea, and they just needed someone to ghostwrite. I've done that. But typically what happens is people will come to me with an idea and say, I just have this idea for a book and I need someone to write it for me. Will you do this? And we go through the vetting process, and then I'll write the manuscript. Now, to secure an agent, that's a whole different process, because you need to have a proposal. You need to do research on different agencies and see who's accepting manuscripts. Second, who's accepting manuscripts like the one that you have. And securing an agent can take up to a year. So, it's not traditionally publishing a book takes a couple of years. And then once the agent is secured, then you need to do another proposal process for the publisher. So, that's a separate contract. And so I can do that. I have done that. But typically that's not what the client wants. The client just wants the manuscript because they're going to self-publish. And I can help them self-publish also.
Let me share an exciting tool that I recently came across that is a game changer for law firms that bill hourly or by the project, otherwise known as flat fee billing. The 2020 Legal Trends Report published by Clio rates how important various items are in a client choosing your firm. You may be surprised to know that the third most important decision factor for someone choosing a lawyer is the ability to pay with a payment plan. The challenge that law firm owners face is the risk of a client not making good on that payment plan. Most attorneys don't offer payment plans because of that. The problem is now solved with LawFunder. LawFunder allows you to easily add a payment option to all your client invoices and retainer replenishment requests that does not require credit checks, applications, or any other complex process. The client's able to use their existing credit cards, allowing them to earn points and miles, access credit card specials on interest rates, and any other tools they use to manage their cash. When I saw this tool, I was blown away. Most importantly, it removes all the risk from the law firm and makes an easy and painless process to the payment process. So if you want to check off the box on one of the top factors in new client decisions, if you want to decrease your accounts receivable and get paid immediately, LawFunder is the solution. Go to lawfunder.com. That's lawfundar.com/profitwithlaw to learn more. Got it. Yeah, so that self-publishing is a whole nother realm, and I don't know that I necessarily want to go into details of that on this episode. But for those of you who don't know the terminology or understand it, I'm just going to ask Diane to real quickly explain what self-publishing is.
Well, self-publishing is an author going through like Amazon and uploading their manuscript and going through their process they'll help you create a cover and all the cover art and everything like that. They can help you do that, or you can upload your own cover art, or you can go through Ingram Spark. And basically what happens with self-publishing is through Amazon will help you, help you market through their different programs that they offer. Ingram Spark has 39,000 distribution outlets. So that's also a great way to self-publish, is to go through Ingram Spark. They're a very old and established company. And then traditional publishing is just exactly what you think it would be.
Right. Okay, we might circle back to this topic. But I think the more prevalent one that people want to know about is writing for their blog, for their own website. And so let's visit the second part of that question. Yeah. Somebody's writing for a blog. Obviously, they want it to rank for SEO, or they want it to have a purpose, a conversion purpose on their site. How does that work as far as the way that you do the writing, and are you filling the marketer's shoes as well? Are you doing the keyword research for SEO, or do they have to be kind of working with a marketing agency who says, hey, here, you need to write an article that's going to rank for this list of keywords, and then they come to you and say, I want to write an article that's going to rank for this list of keywords? Or is that not how it goes at all?
Well, it goes both ways. I've had clients come to me and they already have a list of keywords that they want to rank, and then I write an article around that. But then I've also stepped in as the content marketing strategist and done not only keyword research, but then also helped lay out a plan for the year of different articles that can be written throughout the year.
So, I like that. Yeah. I like that yearly content planning. Now, in your experience, when you're mapping out content planning for a year, is that like a blog post a week, a blog post a month, a blog post a day? What are we talking about?
I typically will say, you don't want more than once a week, because you don't want to blow up your clients and your potential clients' email. Once a week is a lot. Once every other week is okay. Once a month is the least that you want to do. So somewhere between, and it depends on what your goal is too. So once a month to 2 to 3 times a month is plenty.
Got it. So when you work with somebody, you say, hey, okay, look, we're going to make this content strategy, and we're going to go with once every 2 weeks, let's say. So we're writing 26 articles for the year, and I've created the strategy for you. Now you're obviously doing the writing. Do you typically do that as throughout the year, or are you going to go and you just batch all of them and hand them off, get them to sign off on it, and then they go and release them as time goes on?
Again, it depends on what their strategy is. There may be certain things that happen throughout the year that happen every year that they definitely want to have, that they definitely need to have written at the time. Like say they're going to be part of like a summit, like your summit, and they want the summit covered. They're part of the summit covered. So that's something that would be written at the time. But other than that, yes, I will definitely, write in batches and then have them sign off on the different batches. And then that way we can schedule ahead of time and just make sure that we've got something going out every other week.
Now, if the blog posts are centered around some legal issue, where people have questions, and you need to write about what to expect, the process, what are your chances of success, things like that. Is that something that you need to go and do the research on, or is that something that typically the author is telling you, here's the key pieces of information you need to know, now go and put it into something that's readable and sounds good?
I do a combination. I will get the key information that the author wants in there, and then I'll do extra research just to make sure that there isn't something else that needs to be covered. And then once I put all that together, give it back to the author, and they'll say yay or nay.
So how detailed do you get? I mean, like, for example, when we're dealing with lawyers, are you looking for a specific case law that they might have overlooked that you can bring in as references to the article? Like, how far down the rabbit hole are you going in this research process, to write the material?
As far as they want me to go. Some people just want a cursory, this is what's going on. Some people want it more detailed. So it just depends. And of course, the more detailed you get, the more expensive it gets.
Got it. Yeah, and probably the longer the article too,
Right.
and you have to take that into consideration, right? What is somebody going to read? Are we splitting this into a multi-part article?
Well, for something that gets really detailed like that, what I suggest is that they do a white paper or an
Mm-hmm.
ebook.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way they'll have a lead generator that they could offer on their website. Like, well, ebooks more so than white papers
Right.
for law firms. But that's a nice lead generator.
Yeah, and I could see how you have a blog post that covers the cursory information, and then
Mhm.
within that post you have that call to action to, hey, if you want to go into detail on this topic, I've written an entire ebook on it that you can download.
Yep. And they can also charge for that ebook, which is kind of nice.
Right. A novel idea. I didn't know people are still charging for ebooks these days.
Some people do. I mean, it's not as expensive as it used to be, but yeah, there are different people who will still charge for an ebook.
Got it. Um, all right. So it's very interesting. What have I not asked you about in this process that we might want to cover, that somebody might be thinking, hey, I'm considering doing this, but I've got this question? Because I think I've got all my questions answered, but I'm sure that there's something I've missed.
Hmm. Let me see. Well, when you're vetting a ghostwriter, I would make sure that you want to make sure that ghostwriter has some publications that are representative of what you want written. So you definitely, when you're vetting your ghostwriter, make sure that you do go over their own that ghostwriter's website, look at the work samples, make sure that the writing is up to snuff. Because if their own writing is not up to snuff, then they're definitely not going to be up to your what you want for your own website. I think that's really the only thing that we didn't cover.
Yeah, I'm guessing that choosing a ghostwriter and then finding somebody that you're happy with is kind of like a marriage. And once you find the right person, you want to stick with them, which leads to another question. Like, if somebody's working with you for a long time, there's a lot of work on the front end for you to learn them, learn their style, learn how to write in their voice. But
Mhm.
once you've learned that, does it get easier for you for sure, but does it get less expensive for the person having the articles written because you're more naturally able to do that? It's a much easier process, less research as they continue to write with you.
Well, there isn't less research. There's still the same amount of research. There's still the same amount of well, not there isn't as there is still the same amount of face time, because um, if they're coming up with different ideas, I'm still having to interview them.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, to answer your question, it does get less expensive. The more I write with them, the less I need to charge, because they're going to be a recurring client.
Very interesting. This whole process is very interesting, and as we're having this conversation, I keep thinking of use cases internally in house here, where we do a really poor job with writing, and we put out a podcast twice a week. We don't have none of that content has blog posts written around it. It's always been something I wanted to do, and I've delayed doing it because I don't identify as a writer. I have a hard time, sitting down and doing that. So, ghostwriting would definitely be something that we should look into here at Profit with Law, and the various other things that we're doing, our accounting practice, writing articles about, the various tax issues and strategies and things like that. It's always something that I've wanted to do, but we need to get somebody on that, because it's not going to be me. I've delayed it all this time. It's probably not happening. And I think for our listeners, I think that if you're in the same boat, you're probably thinking, yeah, if you really identify, like, why have I not written all these articles that I've had the idea of doing that, but I haven't got around to it? Is it really that you don't have time, or is it that you're procrastinating because it's difficult, or because it's something that you don't enjoy doing? And if that's what's stopping you, then probably a conversation with Diane is the right next step. And my guess is that the right way to get started is to just do one piece of work, right? Let's just do one blog post together and see how that goes, and make sure that we like each other before we dive into a longer term content planning relationship. What do you think, Diane? Is that how you typically try to get started?
Well, how I get started is actually I do 3 blog posts. We sign up for 3 blog posts, because once we're kind of getting to know each other, the second time we're sorting things out, and by the 3rd time we should have exactly how we would be working together all lined out. And if by that third piece we say, yes, I think we can work with each other, this is going to be good, then we go ahead and do another contract. So I have a short-term contract first, and then I do the longer-term contract if we're going to work together.
Got it. Very, very interesting. Let me ask you a couple more questions. So first of all, COVID, has the pandemic affected your business for the better, for the worse? Are people more interested in creating content at this point? Are people less interested? Do you not see any difference really? Like what are you seeing from your perspective, when it comes to writing articles, publishing, things like that?
My business has almost tripled.
Wow.
It's almost tripled this year. It's more than doubled. It's not quite tripled, but it's people are wanting to have COVID related pieces. If I've written one COVID related piece, I've written 1,000. It's been a madhouse here for myself. Yeah.
So how do you navigate that? I mean, like, you're only one person, right? I imagine that you can't you can't necessarily translate your skill set to somebody else. Is there, when you're at capacity, you just say no to new things?
I will refer out to other colleagues, and that's something that's, I guess, kind of unique in the writing industry. We don't really see each other as competitors. We're always referring work to each other. But I will schedule myself up to capacity, and then start to refer out.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, it all makes absolute sense, and I love that you work together in that way. And in a way, the legal community is very similar. You might have a personal injury firm that likes to settle things out, and another one that likes to try cases. And generally, you don't find the same firm doing both. So when somebody comes in and it's going to be something that's going to go to trial, they'll turn around and bring in the another firm to do that for them. And the other way around, when somebody comes in and all they're looking is for a quick settlement, they might refer that, the trial, one might refer that out to the one that likes to settle cases out. We see that in all kinds of things, and family law, and where somebody likes to get involved in litigating family law matters, whereas somebody else likes to do things nice and calmly and nicely between the parties, and they'll collaborate with other attorneys and make that work. So I like that aspect of it for sure. So I told you I had two more questions. One was the COVID question, and I'm trying to remember what the second question was, but I'm drawing a blank right now. I'm not remembering. So this has been, I do remember now. So you had mentioned this, or we had mentioned at the beginning, your affinity to labor law. So tell me a little bit more about that real quick before we close up. How does that affect the work that you take on? And what should somebody, if somebody wants to hone in on that specific thing that you love doing, how does that affect where they might use you for their writing capabilities? Who would be the right audience for that?
Who would be the right audience? The audience that I typically write for are executives, CEOs, CHROs, CFOs, CIOs. So, I'm not necessarily writing for other lawyers. Lawyers don't write for other lawyers. They write for potential clients. So, and who are their potential clients? Those are the business owners. Those are the CEOs, CFOs, CHROs. So that's who I would write for.
Okay, so when it comes to labor law specifically, that would probably be a lawyer that's a business lawyer that helps businesses with their legal issues and stuff like that.
Right.
That would be a good fit for that specific piece of content.
Sure. Yep. It's translating labor law into regular speak.
Got it. Well, Diane, this has been a fun conversation. We're going to wrap it up with two things that I need from you.
Okay.
Number one, somebody is listening to this and they have been delaying the writing process. They haven't written blog posts. They haven't written a book, but they've always wanted to do those things. They've listened to our conversation. What's one piece of advice that you can give them about taking the next step or something that they can do to get this process started? And then the second thing is why don't you share with us how somebody who might be interested in learning more about you or taking the next step with you, where might they go to do that?
Okay. Well, if you think that you're ready to take the next step, I would go on to maybe LinkedIn and type in ghostwriter, business ghostwriter, labor law ghostwriter, whatever type of ghostwriter, and see what comes up, and just start going through their sites. If their sites are complete, if they have clips, if they have a referral out to their own site where you can look at work samples, then that's probably someone that they would want to speak with. For myself, if you want to get in contact with me, you can call me at 904-233-3331, or you may email me at Diane, D-I-A-N-E, at Diane Faulkner, and that's F as in Frank, AULKNER.com. And my website is dianefaulkner.com.
Awesome. Diane, thank you so much. Folks, we're going to link up the website, give you the phone number, the email, all that in the show notes in the description of the episode. So if you look in your podcast player, there's a description. It's got a resources section. Everything that Diane just shared with you is going to be right there. So if you're on the treadmill, if you're out for a run, if you're in the shower listening to this, we've got you covered. It's there. Just go check it out. And I'm just going to close out with this. If you enjoyed this episode and found it impactful, want to share it with a colleague, that's the best way for us to spread the word and get more listeners, get new listeners to the podcast. So please take a moment and just share this episode with somebody who might get value from it, and hit that subscribe button so that you get notified the next time that we release an episode. We release 2 episodes a week, every Tuesday and Thursday. Sometimes we give you an extra. Every once in a while, we might miss one, but generally we're here twice a week and bringing amazing guests to you like Diane, as well as some solo episodes where I like to share my own wisdom, which you may or may not want to skip those if you like what I have to say or don't like what I have to say. But I'm always here to try to provide value to you. And if you haven't got tickets to the Law Firm Growth Summit yet, you want to check it out today, lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. It will also be in the show notes, but it's an easy one to remember, lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. Hopefully we get to see you there, February 9th to the 11th. Diane, thank you so much for your generosity with your time and for sharing this very interesting process with us today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's my absolute pleasure. Folks, have a great day. We'll catch you on the next episode. Take care. Thank you for tuning into the Profit with Law podcast. Your feedback is extremely valuable to us, as well as helping us reach more people with this valuable content. Please leave us a rating and review in your favorite podcast directory. Join us again next time when we are back with even more strategies to profit with law.